This is your home for St. Cloud State hockey, keeping you up to date on the NCHC.
One-timer, come in, they score! Ripped in! A bomb from Permix!
Women's WCHA.
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores! Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies alongside
The National Hockey League.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it! He scores! Kirill, the thrill is for real! Welcome to the NHL, a game winner!
And everything from the state of hockey.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.
Welcome to the Huskies Warming House Podcast Den.
Healthy Scratch interview segment for episode number 59. Nick, our first ever fan special. This one, it's a little bit explicit, a little bit raw, so understand the language and take it with a grain of salt is what it is. That's what happens when you go out to the common folk, if you will. Nick, what was your favorite part of this interview, and who the heck did we have on this week?
You know, I don't honestly know if there's any one particular point in the conversation we had with these two fine people, but we have on Caleb J. Peabody, and then we also have the man, the myth, the legend, or at least we think. Man, we don't really not sure, honestly. He's still part of the witness protection program. We do have Go Huskies Woo join us here on the show, and potentially some maybe clues to who this person is later on the show, but we'll leave that there. But really fun conversation, as you mentioned, quite fun. Some words that maybe FCC would frown upon, but again, it was a more of just kind of an off the cuff type interview, and I think it was really fun.
Yeah, we're regulated by nothing but badassery over here, so we're not going to keep you waiting. Episode 59 of the Healthy Scratch interview segment.
Episode 59, Healthy Scratch interview with Go Huskies Woo and Caleb J. Peabody, and our lovely host, Noah Grant, Nick Maxon. Let's go.
I like that. He was already better than us. So with that being said, this is the fan special here, Noah. We've got Caleb Peabody, and we have the famous Darth Vader. We may have Woo. I mean, we have Go Huskies Woo. I have no idea who this person is. We think it's a male, but both of you guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on for us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us, boys. Absolutely.
So now that we've actually heard the voice of God, which is also known as Go Huskies Woo, I guess what's the first question we could ask him, Noah? Honestly, that because he is part of the witness protection program, I suppose at the end of it, so which CIA agency do you work for, and how do I get your your Manila envelope that it tells you who the hell you are? How do we get a hold of that information?
I always said that once Cinco State wins the Natty, you'd find out who I was with a mug shot. And I'm not sure if that's actually untrue. I think it likely would be. I was close to burning couches this year. But that's probably the best way. Or I'm going to slink off into the night. I don't know.
I like that. He's either got the going down in blaze of glory or the silent serial killer type look to him. That's awesome. And we've got Caleb Peabody just hanging out over here. Caleb, the one question that I'm kind of curious about from you is you actually weren't with us in the beginning. Go Huskies Woo, to his credit, was actually with us probably from about week number 2. I will clarify this. We did offer a formal invite to Go Huskies Woo for episode number 2. Way back in the day, so don't listen to his Twitter shenanigans. We offered him that way back in the day. But nonetheless, Caleb, you kind of joined us right before the NCHC pod. How did you end up hearing about us, and why in the world have you kept listening to us?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and apologies for being a late bloomer and jumping on late. I remember hearing in the previous episode you shout the same thing out, and I had been looking for really a couple of folks that were talking Huskies hockey passionately, as you've seen me on Twitter and Go Huskies Woo. I mean, we have quite the Twitter presence during the Husky season and in the off season. So when I jumped onto you guys, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Let's give this a shout. Didn't have a ton of background on you guys, but love the style that you had for the show and your interviews. And I just kind of kept rolling. And then you're right, around the pod, with the NCHC pod was one of the greatest things this past year, athletically or anything else. So shout out to the whole crew, the whole team, the administrators, everyone. And it just was such a great time to watch all that college hockey. And then it kind of built my following with you guys too. And we got to know each other. I knew these are two awesome guys, and pretty soon it was my go-to every week watching your guys' episode on YouTube or listen to on any of the podcast streams. And pretty soon, I was challenging Nick to arm wrestling duels, and Noah, we were talking about our vowels order, and it just blossomed into this friendship. And here we are.
Yeah.
For those
I'd like to piggyback on that, because there was a clear void that was left. So there was a couple of fans who did a pod not too long ago, Travis and SCSU Travelin' fan, that Twitter handle no longer exists. They used to do a weekly pod, sort of a recap or whatever. And they are two super fans of St. Cloud State hockey. And there was clearly a void. Now, Mick does a great job. Mick Hatton with Rink Live does a great job on like everything. But that's way more professional and way more
better.
Correct. Better. And far less biased, but and so it's nice having your podcasts had most certainly filled a void. And I think for someone who's a super fan like me, it's nice hearing that sort of biased insight, though, right? It's not just biased, terrible tweets like me. It's actual knowledge and tactical breakdowns, things like that. And I think that you clearly filled the void there.
I think it's important for those listening and watching this episode. I would imagine both these fine gentlemen had spent time at St. Cloud State. That's a guess, at least for Woo, again, as he's so affectionately calling his title. But for Caleb, I'm assuming you are an alumni of the university. And if so, when did you, what years were you at the university, and what was your area of study?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I was at St. Cloud State 2012 through 2016, graduated May of 2016 with a degree in public relations and a minor in business management, and grew up a hockey fan and kind of grew into a St. Cloud State hockey fan when I attended St. Cloud. And so lived in the area, in the central Minnesota area. So kind of a natural fit. I will admit that my super fandom grew the more I was at St. Cloud State and after leaving St. Cloud State. And so, yeah, it's just been a pleasure. I mean, I've been following Woo for a long time. And, I will piggyback off the last question, too. There was a void that you guys filled. And so the knowledge that you dropped for the women's team, the men's team, the NHL, high school hockey, whatever it is, it's just a pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The one thing that I'd like to maybe jump off of that, and for like myself, I only spent 1 year at the university, right? Like I wasn't there that long. And I grew up a Gophers fan, which is what it is. My dad went to the UN. My dad went to the UN 81, but I'm a Gophers fan who lives in North Dakota. So it's kind of the lesser of two evils in a sense. I don't know. But the impact that this program has had on myself, and I know that I've mentioned it occasionally, I think there's something to be said where it's like my parents text me all the time and they're like, why do you still do this podcast? And I said, because I love the people that we're around. I love what they bring to the table. And I don't know that there's any other environment, especially with like the student run broadcasting department that's at St. Cloud State, that gives people that opportunity and students to be a part of something great like that. So I don't know. I totally agree with you, Caleb, is that where your super fandom really grew. And like, I'm full-blooded Huskies fan, from the get-go. I want to ask Go Huskies Woo, the significance of a particular weekend here that he mentioned to me off the show, October 17th and 18th, 1997, a 4-3 overtime loss and a 4-1 loss for the St. Cloud State Huskies against Notre Dame. What do those two games have significance for you?
They were the first games I attended. Specifically, it was actually that Saturday game, not the Friday night game. The Saturday game was the first game I ever attended. And The crowd was wild. It was 97, so we're talking like degenerate type of a generation. And it just hooked me. The noise, the raucousness of it all. That was the game that got me hooked. So I've been a fan basically ever since that game.
If Nick, if you mind, maybe I'm stealing your question. I don't mean to step on you on this one. I just want to know, especially from your perspective, Go Huskies Woo. I'm just gonna take a small stab and say you're maybe a little bit older than Caleb and I. I don't know. But going to a game in 1997, do you feel that there's kind of been that lost art of kids showing up to hockey games and, staying off their phones and kind of the Friday and Saturday night vibe that is going to the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center?
Yeah, I think it's a multifaceted answer, though. So I don't know how well you want me to get into the nuts and bolts of it. There is a difference. I don't know if it's necessarily bad, because this is going to sound a little cheesy. You're probably thinking of, I'd probably answer this a little differently, but in 97, with those degenerates and the degenerate generation of going to St. Cloud State, St. Cloud State was absolutely known as a party school. And, they would have smokers breaks where you would leave in the middle of intermission and you could go across the street and pound shots, and then come back, right? I mean, what an obnoxious idea. Think about how dumb that is. That you could leave, and if you knew somebody who lived in those apartments across the street, like, you could go pound a few shots and go back, right? Obviously they don't allow you to leave like that anymore. Smokers passes. I mean, that's all old people talk or whatever. But the school has done a really good job, and it started with President Potter, who kind of adjusted what the outward perception of St. Cloud State was. And I think we get a different student. Obviously, enrollment's down. There's all sorts of other reasons. I don't know where the school has lost some of the. This is a long rambling answer, and I'm sorry, but there's a lot of things that have changed in those years, from the student population now to back then. And I'm not so sure if maybe it's bad for an atmosphere level, but it's probably better for the school's reputation.
I kind of want to piggyback off that, and Caleb, I'm going to ask you first, because I actually, Noah, you were actually leading exactly where I was going with this. It's kind of weird how somehow our brains somehow think smart for once. Anyway, so Caleb, I think obviously college hockey, not just St. Cloud State, but if you look even worse at, say, the Gophers, who can't fill a 10,000 beautiful seat at 3M at Mariucci Arena, and there's a lot of talk about where really the pinnacle of that transition was. And I think for a lot of people around the game of hockey, that pinnacle was in 2013 when the WCHA as it was just vanished. It was gone. And now essentially for the men's side, it no longer exists. It's now the CCHA. And, luckily come into this next season, at least from what we're being told, is that there seems to be a big movement trying to get some of those old rivalries back, at least in the exhibition schedule. Now, granted, I know Brett Larson, I mentioned that, it's kind of a multifaceted issue where COVID and the lack of budgets have kind of pushed that. But I also know on this very show, this last time, or a year ago, we were asking the questions. There was a sort of, it seemed to be a movement trying to push us that. But I guess the long question for the answer here is, what's it going to take to get either the new generation, or even I would say the old generation, back into the building at Herb Brooks National Hockey Center to sort of recreate some of those really good fan atmospheres we had, even though not even as long as maybe 8-9 years ago?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And, for my other college hockey buddies who are not Huskies fans for like us, but are Gopher fans or whatever it may be, the consistent thing that I hear, and you hit it on the head, Nick, is the rivalries, the old rivalries, whether it's in-state or out of state. The Gophers, they want to see them playing St. Cloud State. They want to play North Dakota. They want to play Denver. They want to play these teams that were in the WCHA and beyond from before. And, when I talk to my Gopher friends, they're not a huge fan of Big Ten hockey, although I think it is getting better, is my personal opinion. But it's not to the level of the NCHC yet. And I think we're very fortunate because we play a lot of high-profile teams. We see it in the tournament. right? And that's why I think the Huskies were prepped and ready from the competition. They play night in and night out. It doesn't matter who you play in this conference, you could lose any given night. And so I don't necessarily think that's the case in some of the other conferences. Now, hopefully people don't blow up my Twitter account by being like, how dare you say that, but honestly, I think, for me, selfishly, like I want to see us play the Gophers. I want to see us play, Bemidji and obviously we play Duluth and Mankato. Like if, we're starting out with Mankato this next season, whether that's announced or not, we kind of already know that. And that's what we want to see. Like that, those are the teams we want. And I think, for the Gophers, I get a little like, I don't know, just impassioned about, when the North Star College Cup was happening, obviously, and like you brought these teams together, like you bring college hockey fans together. And the one thing in this state is college hockey fans will travel. And we can get into North Dakota fans and how they travel better than some other fans in the whole nation. But fact of the matter is, like, we'll go to any arena, near, far. And Nick, you maybe know this from Pittsburgh, how many Huskies fans went out there. And, I know you mentioned UND fans went out there, which was mind-boggling. Like they should have been at the bowling alley or playing golf or something else. Not their team wasn't even there. So I just think that like college hockey fans are unlike any other sport in college athletics and maybe any other sport in the whole world. But those rivalries, man, we want to see them. We want, if you got a home and home against Minnesota, you best guess I'm going to be at 3M Mariucci and at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. So.
I want to pick it back off that one more time and go Huskies. This is going to be a question directed at you. Yes, there are the rivalries, which I think, and I do agree with you, Caleb. I think that's a lot of where sort of the passion and the interest got lost. And again, I think it affects multiple generations. But there's also been, talk about, say, the venues, right? The Herb Brooks National Hockey Center. It's a building that largely from its construction has really not changed very much. And especially with, I guess, the way that, I don't know if it's a new generation thing or what may be, but you want to have the newest, the shiniest toy, and there's no question that Herb Brooks needs some TLC. It needs some upgrades. Is that, in your opinion, also another potential, possibility why maybe some of these newer kids, the current college age kids, are not also tuned up because going to the Herb, I mean, it's not the prettiest building. And unfortunately for the student section, at least what we've seen it, and I'm trying not to rip on Huskies fans, especially there in the student section, but sometimes it's the lower half and the upper half is not even touched. I guess, does that ring a bell with you at all?
I'm trying to put my thoughts together. So I think so, maybe a little bit. Again, the population of the students of St. Cloud State has changed dramatically over the last 20 years or so. And I'm not so sure it's as easy as, oh, the speakers are bad or there's troughs in the men's bathrooms, right? Those are clearly like things, but I think the people that St. Cloud State is attracting, there's far more online students, there's far more students older than average, there's far more Ford students, and that's all great because the students are a diverse population and bring a ton of different perspectives to the school. But they have different perspectives, they have different backgrounds. And so they might not have grown up in an area, or they're well past their glory days of high school hockey, or didn't have high school hockey. They might not have that connection. So I think the students, the population has just changed so much. And I think getting them there, and I'll readily admit something to you. This is it's not a secret, but I really didn't do college or high school hockey until I attended that Notre Dame game, that Notre Dame St. Cloud State game. I didn't really care for hockey too much, but I went to a game and it hooked me, right? So if we're looking for, instead of excuses, we can look for solutions. The solutions would be, how do you get people there? And I don't think it's, make the speakers better or whatever it might be. That will help keep them there. But how do you get them there first? I think that's what the university should try to focus on, because once they're there, there's a camaraderie. The college hockey fans are diehard fans. Anybody who cares about a niche sport with 60 Division I teams, from schools you've never heard of, as a casual person, like Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute or whatever, right? Where the hell is that even, right? I mean, I know where it is, but most people don't. And if you're going to get people excited about St. Cloud State versus RPI, you need to get them into the building. And that's the first step. And I think that's where the struggle is. I didn't answer your question, but I feel like that's the solution, is getting them into the seats once, whether that is, promise them a free pizza or whatever. I don't care what it is, but I think that's the actual solution.
Yeah, it actually makes me think of the night that Unreal, who makes our hats, had that night where the first 900 college students that went in the building came and got a free hat last year. Things like that I always think are nice, because I think they were playing maybe Duluth that weekend anyway, but I mean, just a nice addition to that attendance. A lot of school age kids were jumping into. So I agree. I think the other 2 points that maybe I'd like to make quick. One, I think I heard some rumblings that both the speakers and the scoreboards were just updated or getting ready to be updated at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center this year. Actually, I think I saw Caleb kind of maybe thinking about that too. So that's That's one piece of that. And then the other thing, you're totally right about the enrollment. I talked to somebody a couple of years ago, and they said that he's a professor in kinesiology, and he said, I think in 2012 there was just under 19,000 students on campus. When I was there 2 years ago, it was down to about 12,000, and now with COVID this past year, it's at about 5,000 that are on campus. Obviously, it didn't make a difference with the attendance this year because of nobody being able to be in the building. But again, it's something to think about, I think, as we move forward, because one of the blessings and curses for us, it's a blessing for our podcast because we can do this remotely. But for universities, it might be a curse, is if you're already losing money and then they figure out how to do online classes or, change a class into an online modality. I think that, adds a different piece of that as well. Before we get into your guys' actual social media presence here, because I have a couple questions on those. I'm curious as to both your thoughts. Would you both say that the NCHC team or the rival that you guys dislike the most as Huskies fans, is North Dakota the safe bet on that one? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, year in, year out for me, and I can only guess what Go Huskies Woo is going to say as well. I mean, I think every year, quickly, and I won't banter on, I'll shut up and let him answer too. But, UMD, I generally don't necessarily dislike them. I have a lot of respect for Scott Sandelin and that program up there. And I know you guys attest to that. I think this year I was obviously a new love for our friends out in Omaha. They frustrated me at times because I'm like, gosh, this team's getting good very fast.
Yeah. And,
competing well. In fact, I mean, I think that was our first, maybe our second shutout loss, early on in the pod, and I was like, that's not something we've expected out of Omaha in years past. I think I got really frustrated by Colorado College this year. But, UND every year, it's like, no, it's they're top of the list. And I think that's the thing across college hockey. When I talk to friends outside, like getting back to that one team, that Bob Motzko runs, they obviously hate UND. That's like a common thing across college hockey, I feel like. And I think we can all agree at that. And, it's funny when we got into the tournament this year, like everyone can come together and be like, we have one passion, at least UND's not here. So, yeah, I don't know. That's my answer. I mean, I'm probably going to get blown up for it, on Twitter, but that's okay.
I'm putting you guys in a tough spot, and Go Huskies Woo. I want to verify that it's North Dakota, but based on your Twitter presence, I have a hard time that it might be anybody else, maybe the Gophers. So my question for both of you is this, Go Huskies Woo, we'll start with you. And I'm curious about this because I live in the sea of green. I live in North Dakota and get to listen to it all the time. What are maybe your top one or two things that you hate the most about North Dakota hockey fans, and why?
Only one or two. So they're clearly passionate about the one thing that they have to look forward to in their sad, desolate life. They cling on to past successes as if they did it themselves or if they did it yesterday or both. And I think that type of mentality is just really off-putting. If you looked through the people that I've blocked on Twitter or muted is my new favorite because then they can scream at the void and I'll never and they'll never know, which is actually somewhat pleasing to me. Like there's someone who's like screaming probably something racist to me. And I don't even acknowledge it, which I'm sure is more upsetting than, haha, he blocked me. What a wuss, or whatever they might say. Right. And so I think that I don't really have too many problems with the actual players or the program itself. Maybe other than its monetary foundation, having some suspect background. But it's mostly fan interactions. I can tell you one time I had a pleasant interaction with a North Dakota fan.
One time.
One time. This is true story. It's the one time. I'll give you a one-time true interaction that was pleasant. I was at a bar, at Matt's bar in Minneapolis. It was not Matt's bar. I'm sorry. 508. I just got help from the background.
It's one of the Lucy's, yes.
It wasn't. It was a 508 at the Final Five or the Final Phase, whatever the fuck it's called nowadays. And this fella came up. He saw that I was in a Husky jersey or whatever, and he bought me and my companion, my partner, a drink. And then that was kind, right? That was really kind. And St. Cloud State had won, so it made it better. But he drank, I think it was like Miller Lite or something, which is fine. But then he put salt in it. Okay. And I said, why are you putting salt in it? And he goes, well, why do you put salt on anything? To make it taste good. And I said, well, why don't you just order a good beer? And he's like, well, I like this one with the salt. And I said, okay. But anyways, that's the one pleasant interaction I've had with an individual from it. But normally it's the screaming old ladies yelling or puking down steps or whatever it might be, right? It's just mostly horrible interactions as humans. So there you go.
Yeah.
Is that a good enough answer?
That's a fantastic answer. Caleb, I might rob you of your answer, but we'll see here. In my personal experience, because it's when I was a little kid, I was partially a North Dakota fan just because all my friends were North Dakota fans. And, that's not when when you're 7, you don't think about the politics and landscape of NCAA hockey. You're like, oh, Ralph Ingolstadt, nice building, fun hockey, right? So, and then of course, as time went on, I was shown the ways of fandom, and that was not the direction I wanted to head. One thing you can say about North Dakota, their fan base is passionate. They do travel very well. I think that's something that if there's anything any other NCHC group can take from that is building that interaction. And that, I mean, for better or for worse, it sucks to play in Ralph Ingolstadt Arena when it's full and 12,000 people are in that building. That's a tough building to play in. The thing that I always have had the most trouble with living in this state, especially, the fans are just illiterate about the game of hockey. And now I know that every fan base has the people that don't like hockey. They're there to just enjoy the experience, or that, they're great fans and that sort of thing. It's one thing to be illiterate about the game or be a bandwagon fan and acknowledge or recognize that. It's another thing to act like, what is it? A couple weeks ago on Twitter, Nick, we got some fans saying that Jake Sanderson was the best rookie in the NCAA this year. And it's like, no, he might be the best defenseman, but he's not, like, just because he plays for North Dakota doesn't mean that. And, I meet so many people that say, North Dakota is the best at hockey. And I'll say, okay, name 5 players on the team. Well, that doesn't really matter. It's kind of like, how much have you invested in actually understanding the sport? So Caleb, I'm curious to see what your answer is, because that's for me, but that's also because for Nick and I, especially, we can't turn off the analysis in our head. So
sure. No, I think you're right on. And I think, I give them a lot of credit. I do have a lot of respect for the program. And I think, like I said, they travel unlike any other college fan base I've seen in college hockey. And I could be missing something. I haven't been to every arena in every city across the country. But, when I would show out, even when we'd be at the Target Center for the Frozen Face-Off, and what would pack there. And I get it's North Dakota to Minnesota, but these fans will pack out whether their team's playing or not. North Dakota could lose, get bounced in the first round, and yet there's going to be thousands of North Dakota fans there. So, but to your point, it's like all my interactions with most UND fans is just they've been rude and they've been illiterate about the game itself. And they've had a ton of success again, like, and kudos to them for that. But, you know, they play in the greatest college hockey conference in the nation. There's a lot of good teams. And so even this year, you know, when they lost to UMD in 5 overtimes, they're like, oh, well, like UMD got lucky. And it's like, UMD had skill. Like, let's not joke around here. Like, you can say lucky bounce, whatever it may be, but they have skill. And so, and credit to the North Dakota players, you know, some really cool moments after that game too, of just coming together, you know, with Ryan Fanti and those guys. But yeah, I don't know. I just think, and Huskies Woo may agree with this too, of just like, they feel like they're better than everybody else. And it just irks you a little bit, because it's like, we're a good program. We've been there. And granted, we have not won a national championship, you know, but still, it's like, haven't yet. And we're getting real close. But, you know, it frustrates me every single year. And just like, you don't have to be rude. Like, it just doesn't have to be that way. Like, if you come into our building and beat us, good for you. I'll wave at you on the way out, whatever. But, you know, it's the fans that just kind of put everyone else down. It's like, we don't need that in college hockey. We really don't.
The quick thing,
maybe because they have more fans that travel, they have more shitty ones. I think that might be it.
It's a virus, man. I swear, they travel like a virus, man. They just, you know, they take over one thing, and then they just constrict you with a grip. And I don't know what it is about that fan base.
Let's calm down with the viruses thing here, Nick.
No, I mean, one out of 5 Dakotans have had COVID, so I think
that's fair.
Accurate.
I have not, but I'm also not a North Dakota fan. I think the other thing too, maybe to pause it quickly, it's almost what makes the rivalry so special in a sense, though. Am I correct in saying that? Where it's like, you almost hate their fan base so much, but really respect how good the actual players and program are, that it's this mix of like, how nice would it have been to have beaten North Dakota in the NCHC championship game in their own building in front of their own fans, right?
I mean, we did for 55 minutes, right? I mean, that's the thing, is like, we absolutely were there and we're doing it. A 5-minute brain fart led to the loss, but much past that, we were the better team overall. And we beat them. We beat them throughout the regular season too. I think you're right. I go back to think of how good that Ryan Paling goal, the back and forth between the legs behind whatever, that was obnoxiously good, right? When it comes to skill and execution. But the fact that it was at Ralph Engelstad, the fact that it basically cinched Penrose, that was a very, very good goal in Husky history. And not just because of how special it was on the ice, but how special it meant.
I watch it every year. A goal, just like, to his point too, like in that arena, in that setting, it's like, it's insane to me. I mean, it would have been insane here at Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, but it puts on a whole different level for me that it was at the Ralph.
If Huskies hockey had a Pornhub channel, that would be on repeat. We'll just put it that way. So
most viewed.
Most viewed. It's so true. But anyways, Flick, yes, we'll I think we'll edit that one out. No, just kidding. But you know, let's come back to earth a little bit here, because I think, you know, I agree with you, Noah, that it's the fact that there's such a passionate distaste for the other fan base that, you know, really does illuminate this. And that's really what carried the mail for the WCHA, whether it was the Gophers, whether it was Wisconsin, whether it was, you know, I don't know if Michigan Tech had that same appeal, but for certainly, you know, when those other teams that were around the state of hockey were together, it was a bloodbath every single weekend. I still remember as a kid, when you go back to the Mesozoic era and you still had to, you know, print your tickets on stone tablets, when you had to go into the Mariucci Arena and the student section. I mean, granted, it's one level bowl and the student section was completely full, and they have their chance and they're on top of the opposing goaltender. And that energy, that fire is what at least for me, I want back in the game of college hockey. And I think there is an itch to get that back. And I think we're going to start to see, I think hopefully a revitalization of that, hopefully with the exhibition schedule that should be confirmed in the next week or two. That's kind of my thing. But I guess let me ask you this, Caleb. I'll start with you, Caleb. Does the thought of St. Thomas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Mankato coming to the Herb, does that make you want to come out to see a game more often than it did before? Is that a driving factor for you, even if it is an exhibition game? Would that drive you to the ticket polls and to try to come up to St. Cloud to watch a game or two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the schedule this year, I'm stoked about it. I think Brett Larson and the team has done a great job putting the schedule together. And I listened to him talk about, obviously budgetary things that come into effect, but beyond that, like, St. Thomas being a new program, it's bright and shiny and new, and everyone wants to see what they can put on, and, obviously the Gophers that brings you out, but Wisconsin, Mankato, those as well, like, especially what we just had against Mankato, like to start the season, I think that is classic. That's a great way to drop that puck. And, I think fans packing the building, obviously we've had a year off due to COVID, and rightfully so, like doing the safe thing and what's right. And hopefully there's going to be an itch to get back in that building. I really think our fans, speaking for us, like, I mean so much to that St. Cloud community. We all know that. And, getting the student section back in, there's things that need to be done there to get the students in the building. But I think for everybody else, alumni, fans in that community, like, those matchups are going to help a ton. It's going to bring intrigue. These are really good teams. These are not, just some random team from out east, Hockey East somewhere, which we can get into another time. But, these are really good
Massachusetts is the state of hockey, Caleb. Don't forget that.
Man, let's not even go there. Like it boggles my mind, like that tweet. And luckily, Dave Starman was on with you guys and talked it through, and it was a joke. I'm like, if they're serious about this, this is not real. This is a dream.
It's good for the schools. It's good for the schools that are close, regardless of if we fill the Herb or we fill the what's it called, Verizon Wireless, whatever that thing is, Mariucci at 3M TCF or whatever. Whatever it takes for more people to buy tickets. Like if it's 9,000 Gopher fans and 1,000 Husky fans, that's good for the University of Minnesota. If it's 4,000 Husky fans and 1,000 Gopher fans at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, that's good for St. Cloud State because tickets generate revenue, and
good for the game of hockey too.
Absolutely. So even if there's more, quote unquote opposing fans, it's better for the school just from a budgetary situation.
Now, go Huskies. Well, I want to piggyback off this too, just because, you talked about getting the fans in the building, right? Whether it's the students or whoever. I almost want to think that this is almost an important transition time in, I guess you could say, college hockey history in a sense, because again, schools' budgets were absolutely just hammered this past year, whether it's athletics or just the general funds. You have, again, St. Cloud coming off of just one win shy of bringing home some hardware for the first time in school history. You've got the Gophers who were one win away from being in the dance too. North Dakota was up there. You have a lot of these programs in this area that were right up there in the thick of it, of being, part of that group that was in Pittsburgh. And I think it's almost, if you're an administrator from either school, right, you're looking at this and you almost, it's almost scary to think that, don't you agree that this is almost a time where if you have to take advantage of, trying to strike while the iron's hot, this is the time to really do it, to really get the fans re-engaged. And, I know Brett Larson can say, at least in my opinion, and he's not wrong about the budgetary concerns, but don't get me wrong. This is a lot about getting, it gets those rivalries back and getting the fans even more energized and keeping that momentum of fan interaction going when, again, the tough showing in Pittsburgh. But, again, we play that game 10 times. Huskies may win that 5, 6, 7 times.
Yeah, I think the coming back off of a COVID year, and hopefully that there will be, enough people will get vaccines so that, we'll be allowed to fill it again. So get your vaccines, people. You never know what you got till it's gone, right? And there was some times this year, or maybe 2 years ago, maybe a casual fan would say, well, maybe I'll just go on one night, or I'll go next weekend. But this year's proved that there was no next weekend. So I think that somebody don't take it for granted so much. I also want to point out that as much as we like to shit on him, Bob knows how important it is for a school like St. Cloud State, Mankato, Bemidji to play the University of Minnesota because he's been on the other side of it. I know for a fact from his own words that keeping these rivalries in state is not only good for the University of Minnesota, but it's also critical for the universities elsewhere, the Bemidji's, the Mankato, St. Cloud States, and ultimately St. Thomas and probably Duluth as well. So I will give him 2 props for that, but nothing else.
Figures. The cool thing about St. Cloud, I think when Caleb, you mentioned you were stoked about the upcoming schedule. I think the cool thing to think about is, right, I believe we're the first team to play St. Thomas. We've got Mankato on the docket. We're the first group to christen the new arena in Colorado College when the Huskies travel out there as well. A lot of exciting things, and we're the runner-up NCAA team, from this past year that's looking to climb that last rung of the ladder. So I think that's exciting as we move forward. Speaking of moving forward, guys, I'm really curious. Part of the piece that I'm surprised we've taken this long to even touch on it, and that's your guys' social media presence and what you guys bring to the table. So I kind of want to ask a couple questions about that. Caleb, I'll start with you. And I don't know if we helped you a little bit, but you've really kind of taken our product and really kind of continued to mold your branding, if you will, into something even bigger and better. It's funny, actually, I think when you tweet about things or things that we're tagged in, you actually get more like retweets and likes than we do. And we're just like, oh, okay, we'll just add Caleb to the team on the marketing squad here. The one question I wanted to ask is, you're somewhat of a marketing guy by trade and kind of what you do career-wise. Can you inform people what you do career-wise? And then is there some actual strategy to your account, or are you just hitting caps lock and going for it?
Yeah, sure. So I work in advertising and marketing, and I worked in social previously to that. So I've been in that trade for, ever since getting out of college. Right out of college, I worked in social media professionally for a bit, and then now into marketing and advertising. So as far as my own personal Twitter account, I'm going to be honest with you, I just tweet about Huskies hockey because I like it. And the caps lock thing, I do that via text, and all my friends hate it because why are you yelling at me? And I'm not. It's just general excitement. And what I tweet, and Go Huskies Woo can throw something at me because I tag you guys, all of y'all, in almost every tweet, and it's probably annoying. And I know I've said that to you, Noah, in the past. And it's but I want to generate a buzz, and there's a genuine buzz around Huskies hockey during games. Yeah. And the friends that I've met, the people that I've connected with and still connect with, and this gets back to getting into arenas. When we can go to arenas again, you see someone and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been, tweeting with them for, the past 2 seasons or whatever it is. And now you get to know someone. So for me, I just like to have fun with it. Marketing background, it helps. I try and tweet funny things that I think is funny, still in a respectful manner. I'll get a little impassioned at refs, or when Pat is up in the booth and makes a call I don't agree with, I'll tweet at him. But, it's, but in all good fair, these folks take it in all great fair. I think this past year I tweeted at Pat, and I'm like, you missed a call. You missed something. That's not right. And I had to think about it. They're watching it in real time. I can see a couple replays, and then he's like, yeah, I get it. I missed it. Okay. And I'm like, cool. I love you. Let's just let it go. So, as far as likes and retweets and all that, I don't pay a ton of attention to it. I think probably some of the most is when we do victory drinks, which I don't know what that says. It's those moments where I truly think there's a genuine following around Huskies Twitter. I don't know if it's the same way at UMD. I don't know if it's the same with these other teams, but I think it's a way to connect. And it was extremely important to me. Every Friday and Saturday night, I'm watching Huskies hockey, either in the arena or from where I live. And so to stay connected with people meant a ton. And if that meant annoying some folks, and it just happened to be that we connected this season and we were along for this ride, and you put up with my tweets, it's just crazy. I'm surprised that Huskies Woo didn't mute me, and maybe he did. And so we'll work through that. But no, it's just been a fun ride. And honestly, I just think it's, just stuff that you're passionate about, go from there. And yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, Caleb, you don't annoy us. I'm the one that sees 99.9% of what you tweeted us. And actually
I
normally
figure that.
I'm always, you know what's funny? It's actually the opposite. I'm always worried that not that I'm like trying to like or retweet everything, but I find most, if not everything, of your things humorous or funny or relatable. So I always worry that if I don't like something that you've tweeted at me, that like I'm giving off the wrong vibe where you're like, I'm never gonna go there again, and that sort of thing. And part of me is like, I don't.
Part of it, Noah, that you like is regardless. She's taking a giant crap on me. So I mean that makes sense.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
So, like, and kudos to Nick, because like, no, I think I built relationships with all you guys on social media. It's been fun, but for some reason, like getting to know Nick through social, like you could see that you could poke at him a little bit, and he likes to have humor at his own expense. So, but still doing that in a coy way, a funny way, like a respectful way. Like, I'm not a fan of folks who just like take a crap on each other, or other fan bases. Like, let's have fun with it. Let's be good with it. And like, I'll come from the top rope for Nick at times. Like, I'm going to arm wrestle you, or you're going to get us bows, or you're going to, get us room service when you go out to Pittsburgh. Like, that's it. But
I was actually worried that my hotel room was going to get a knock and be like, "Hey, did you order like the salmon platter or something like that?" Like,
so good.
I was like, "Oh gosh," and I'll know exactly who it came.
But you're totally right, Caleb. Because if anything, someone who maybe follows you but doesn't follow us goes, "Who is this Nick Maxon guy, or what is going on here?" And I think that's the big thing too, is where Go Huskies. Well, we're getting to you in a second. I have a double question for you in a second here, so thank you for waiting patiently. But the one thing that I always think about too is that I think, especially from Nick and I's point, and we've seen this on Twitter, and I have to be really careful about this, is there are times where, especially with certain fans, we'll kind of go back and forth when the game isn't going well for a Huskies hockey game. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think we have to be careful, because that's where our passion lies, right? Is kind of wanting to be a part of that. And I think that if anything, you especially, Caleb, you do a really nice job of kind of just resetting everybody and refocusing and just saying, hey, we're hanging out, we're enjoying some hockey, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I think that's an important piece too, because it's one thing to be a part of a fan base and a Twitter fan base. It's another thing, what is the dynamic of that fan base? Is it this hardcore, balls to the walls type thing? Or is it something that if you're a casual fan, you can jump in and kind of say your piece and kind of feel like you're valued and part of that group and get more people in as well? So, Caleb, did you have anything? You look like you have something to add here. So,
yeah, I would just say I like to take everyone's opinion matters, and like especially those who are tight knit, who like I'm always learning, and I'm to be honest, I'm wrong about things. I'll see something in the game and be like, this is my thought, and kudos to someone like Go Huskies Woo, who will step in and correct me at times and be like, no, you're wrong, and I don't take that personally. I don't take it personally, and because it's like we're all like learning. I love learning the game, like honing my craft a little bit. So yeah, to your point, we'll tweet something out of passion too and be like, hey, these refs missed a call. That was offside. And it's like, you can get into a friendly debate about it. And then at the end of the day, it's like, let's go, let's move on. We're all one team, one dream. So let's keep it moving. I'll shut up and let Go Huskies Woo talk.
I definitely agree. So Go Huskies Woo, I've got a two-parter for you here. So it's kind of an intricate one. First of all, the first part of it is simple. I want to know how your account actually started and kind of what makes the allure of Go Huskies Woo what it is, how you've kept this train rolling for a couple of years now. And the second part of this is, because you've been around Huskies hockey a little bit longer than some of us, I got a DM a couple of weeks ago from our Huskies Warming House page talking about how they loved our passion, but sometimes they get worried that it's like we're new Huskies hockey fans, if you will, and we haven't gone through a lot of the heartache and a lot of the pieces of that as well. We're kind of the young blood, if you will. What would your advice be to us for some of the people who have followed the ups and downs and some of the heartbreaks of years past as we cover the sport, trying to kind of appeal to that sensitivity, but also do our analysis on top of that?
Oh, wow.
Good luck.
I'll answer the second part first, and then I'll probably have to ask what the first part was again.
Sure.
How do you get through? You're a fan of a team. You don't need to have credentials to be a fan of St. Cloud State. If you want to be a St. Cloud State Husky fan, God bless you. I'm not sure that you need to be like, well, I was here in the '05 season or whatever. And I think that one was I think that I could be wrong. It's either '05 or '06, pretty historically shitty. And you don't need to have lived through that to, enjoy what happened this year. And that's obnoxious, so don't tell anyone to tell you how to fan. Anybody who tells you how to fan needs to jump in a lake. Okay.
A frozen one?
Yeah.
Not quite frozen because it would stop them from getting into the lake, but maybe like a semi-frozen, so they actually go through and feel the pain of the ice cold lake.
Are you talking, just to interrupt you, are you talking 2004, 05, 14, 23, and 3?
That sounds about right. That was the one that was basically the death knell of Craig Dahl. And so that one was pretty bad. But you don't need to have lived through that to be like, oh, well, this was more important. Because let's be honest, we've all suffered some type of heartbreak in the last 2, 4, 5, 30 years, right? I mean, one isn't better or worse than the other. So anybody who tells you otherwise, they need to rethink that. That's silly to me. To be better prepared for it. I mean, I think the neat thing is all is successful St. Cloud State. I'm jealous of that. All is basically successful St. Cloud State hockey tournament or hockey teams. The worst team that we had was the team that got, stopped by COVID in the last 5 years. And they were on a roll. They were actually getting better. There's no reason they couldn't have made a run at the Frozen Face-Off that year. They were getting better, in my opinion. They probably had to get through Western, which is tough. But other than that, they were, they lost a bunch of 1-goal games. They were young, they were dumb, but they were fun to watch. All you've known is good teams. I'm jealous of that. That's neat, right? Anyway, that's what I think. I don't know if I answered your question, but to hell with them, whoever said that.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of curious about it because part of me is like I like the point that you made about as a player, I've had heartbreak like that, right? Like I remember losing to go to a state championship 5-4 and the game winner hit the crossbar, didn't even go in the net. I know what that feels like as a player. So it's like, I might not have known it as a Huskies hockey fan following St. Cloud hockey, but it's like, Nick and I played the game for 2 decades, each of us at least. So it's kind of that piece of the team. I was just curious. Well, as a competitive player, I mean, but little over 2 decades. Well, maybe Toronto will give you a call. You and Jumbo Joe can be in a line together, the veteran line there.
We'd be good. We'd be slow. We'd be good.
So Go Huskies. Well, my first question for you is your social media account. Kind of, how did it start? How have you kept the train rolling? And what have been some of your highlights running that account and keeping the masquerade intact?
I started it at the first Frozen 4 run. And mainly because there was something like Gopher Puck Live, who's now blocked me.
They follow us, not a big deal.
It really is not. Only now that I can't see updates. I do like watching other college hockey updates and things like that. So it is sort of that is sort of disappointing. I'm surprised it actually took this long, but whatever. But there was nothing really that was like this semi-biased, no holds barred. The biggest account probably was like Center Ice Club, and Bill does a good job of promoting the school, but it's a different vantage, things like that. I mean, that's not bad. And so I thought that I kind of thought there was like a call for it, a void for it, someone to kind of rally around. There was the hashtag Go Huskies Woo, which was started previously, and I blatantly stole it and let it ride. And I'm not really sure where the joy of the masquerade came from. I don't really know. I don't think I set off to be like anonymous in 8 years or whatever the hell it is now.
Yep, 8. But
that's sort of how it started, and it's kind of kept going. I don't think I do any weird things to get followers. Obviously, I gained a lot during this Frozen 4. But I've sort of stalled out for a while, but that's okay. I'm not looking. It's never been I think Caleb said this. It's not about the likes and the retweets and the impressions. Shit, I'm not making any money off of this. You know what I mean? Like, my personal life kind of suffers sometimes during the Husky season, but it's not for like monetary gain or, you know, anything like that. It's more just for love and passion of the game. And, you know, my personal account needed a break from single state hockey. So that happened a long time ago.
Yeah. What about also with that Go Huskies Woo, kind of the interaction with the NCHC as well, and kind of them abandoning that hashtag? Did you have something to do with that, or what's the deal with that?
Well, the university is treaded lightly, in my opinion, of the hashtag Go Huskies Woo, because, again, victory drinks or whatever it might be might not be conducive to the school's message. And I get that. And then it makes me laugh, but it's funny that they try to, like, you know, do other things that just don't quite stick. And I'm not a marketing person at all. I readily admit that, but I know what's working and what doesn't. And it's funny that the school does that. And, you know, the NCHC has to probably follow what the school wants or vice versa. And the Unleash SCSU, which is a neat campaign. You know, we've got Robbie and Christian Cole and all these other folks that, you know, are the face of St. Cloud State. I clearly am not.
And if you were, no one would know whose face it was. So
that's exactly right. Maybe I am Robbie.
Yeah, you might be on a billboard. We just don't know it.
That's exactly right. I'm not. There's a clue for you. I am not. So I don't, you know, them abandoning it is funny, but it's not, I guess it's not really too surprising because it's never been a real sanctioned. They use it, but only when it kind of benefits them, which is fine. I love St. Cloud State. I wouldn't want to disparage them, but they need to do what they need to do.
Well, that makes sense. And we saw that throughout the Frozen Four too. Honestly, there was times where the hashtag was pushed quite a bit there, and then all of a sudden it was almost like there was a void there. So it was like, you know, Luke Skywalker coming in, and all of a sudden he was sodden half. He's in a lava field. I don't know what happened. So it just stuff happens, you know. I have just one more question for each of you, just before we kind of wrap things up. And again, but both of you, thank you again for joining us. Hashtag victory drinks. But Caleb, let's, you know, we've looked back a lot of what has been, you know, this last year, last couple of years. We've also looked forward a little bit. But is there anything that you are looking forward to most about the upcoming season, whether it's the roster and a lot of it that's returning? Is it some of those matchups that we are about to see? Or is it, you know, continually trying to RKO me from the top rope on Twitter and getting a laugh out of me?
That last one is classic, and we'll get to that at some point. But I really think what excites me, and we didn't know this exactly when we were in the Frozen Four, is just this roster coming back. We have a great group of guys, that really cares, and you've had many of them on, obviously, and you know, I just think I'm excited to see their growth. Like Brett Larson talked about it too, of just like they've gotten a taste of this as far as they've gotten. Now let's see them continue to grow as a team, and we got a few young recruits coming in, which I'm excited about, and you know, it's college hockey. You always tend to get a little bit ahead of yourself, right? Like we were in the Frozen Four and we were already starting to think about what's next year look like. And that's maybe natural. And I'm glad we were able to enjoy that. But I'm excited to see this team and hopefully in person back at the Herb Brooks National Hockey Center, get your vaccine so we can go. That's my one little push there. You know, so we can all be there to watch this team in person and support them, because I really thought throughout the season, they grew a ton. Like we were not on the radar at the beginning of the season. To us, we were, but nationally, as we all know, we weren't. And I just, you know, they continued to grow and continued to get better, and they played their best hockey at the right time. And, you know, we've seen other teams like UMass and UMD get a taste of it, lose, and then come back. And I hope for this team, they could do something similar. I'm just excited to watch them. You know, I'm just excited to see them again next year. October can't get here fast enough. Let me tell you, those matchups will be great. But we could play any team out there, and I'm going to watch these boys. So,
I got one follow-up for Go Huskies Woo. And I think we don't give the staff that runs this hockey club enough credit for what job they have done. Brett Larson, Dave Shayak, Nick Oliver. Yes, we have praised them up and down, but I mean, you talk about the last couple of years, right? We saw a team that maybe on paper didn't have the most talent, and they still, like you mentioned yourself, this was a team that was getting better and was going on a run. And then this year, arguably more talent on the paper, and they just kept getting better. They kept growing. What has it been like to watch this Huskies team under this coaching staff headed by Brett Larson? And I think to Caleb's point too, why wouldn't you want to go see this team in person next year when you haven't been for over a year, number one? Number two, where this team, with a lot of it coming back, and we still have one question mark, at least as far as I know, still with David Rennick, what a treat it is to be able to go and watch not only young men continue to grow as men as well as hockey players, but to see it under such, I guess, eloquent poetry under the leadership of Brett Larson.
Well, why wouldn't you want to go see, as Caleb has said, I don't see a loss on the schedule. If you want to see a victory, go to a game. But honestly, you didn't ask the question that I think Noah said he was going to ask, is like who you were excited or who took the biggest step or whatever.
Your standout player of the year. Yes, I like that pick very much.
It's Zach Okabe. He had like swagger on his skates. There were people who were good and got better or whatever, but he took the next step where he was all of a sudden, I don't know if you saw, he sort of like, sometimes he'd have the puck on stick and he would like move his hips like he was dancing. Like he was dancing with these bitches and he was saying, you know what? I'm going to take you to town and I'm going to win. And he did. He was incredible all year. Anyway, why wouldn't you want to go see this team? Because they're all in for each other and they want to succeed, not just for themselves, but for their team and for the school. The difference between the eras, there's been three, right? Dahl, Motzko, Larson. All three of them have had magnificent recruits, magnificent NHL players, from Jeff Finger to Mark Hardigan to
Jeff Finger.
All of these coaches had incredible talents on their team. All of them had success in some way, right? Craig Dahl won a Final Five, took them to their first NCAAs, first number one seeds, etc. Motzko, same thing, first Frozen Four, first Penrose, first whatever. But Brett's teams don't panic. And I have seen a lot of Husky teams go down when they are good and they panic. And it started last year where they were down and they didn't panic. They were in almost every game. So the poise and the resilience of the team, I think, is a direct descendant from Brett Larson and his ability to, I'm not sure if it's practice or if it's in-game coaching or a little bit of both, or the players that he is maybe not recruiting, but finalizing in that recruiting. There's no panic. And whether they're down in a semifinal against Boston, or they're down against CC, he talked about this in your last game. And I think that was really interesting because the old me saw that, midline, middle ice shot go in through David. And I thought, oh, fuck, that's going through. And, we're done. Right. And that's over. But then they hammered, what was it, like 4,000 shots to nothing in the third period.
Yeah. 77 total that night. Yep.
They found a way to win. They didn't panic. They never looked like they panicked. Husky fans, especially the old ones, the ones who had, quote unquote, earned their stripes, we all panicked. We had seen this before, but they proved us wrong. And that is why everyone should go next year, because they'll prove you wrong again.
Yeah, I like that. I think the one thing that Brett Larson has brought, and credit to him as a Duluth Bulldog, is he brings championship experience and understands what it takes to get there, and understands that the road to a Frozen Four and a national championship, it's not linear. It's mountains and valleys, and it's how can you find a way to climb and gain traction through all those moments. So I definitely agree. And we couldn't be more excited to cover this team again next year and see what they have in the making. To finish up the show, Nick, I know we talked about this a little bit pre-show. We're actually, even though we didn't win a national championship, we actually are going to get a face reveal here from Go Huskies Woo. Is anybody else a little bit excited about that? He has formally agreed to jump on with a face reveal for us. So I guess whenever you're ready, Go Huskies Woo, maybe let's just go for it now.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Here it is.
What has this kid been telling you? How far has it gone? The president's about ready to order a counterstrike. That's what we're recommending you do. It's a bluff, John. Call it off. No, it's not a bluff. It's real.
Hello, General Barringer. Stephen Falcon.
Mr. Falcon, you picked a hell of a day for a visit.
General, what you see on these screens up here is a fantasy, a computer-enhanced hallucination.
Jack, there's nothing to indicate a simulation at all. Everything's working perfectly.
But does it make any sense?
Does what make any sense?
That.
Look, I don't have time for a conversation right now.
So Nick, I don't have anything else to add. That was awesome for Caleb and Go Huskies Woo to come on the show. Guys, how, I guess to finish out a very quick last question, Go Huskies Woo, you were a little bit nervous coming in with some of the questions. Was it up to your standard? Was it up to your par? Do you feel nervous about the product that we've laid out this evening?
So I was a little nervous in that only that I didn't know exactly what you wanted to talk about. I can talk about, the population of St. State or play on the ice or whatever it might be. So, just sort of, that was just my own anxiety of like, where is the conversations going? You guys do a really good job. And I wasn't kidding when I said you fill a void in it's a very niche market. So, you might not be, ESPN2, but
we're ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's perfect. But you do fill a void, and the passion that you have is clear. I wasn't trying to butter anyone's asshole. Not yet. I'm not yet. It's Monday, and I've only had a few.
Pick your drinks.
So I like the format. I like the way you guys do things. I appreciate what you do for the school, and I hope it does better. And I hope, you can continue on.
Yeah.
I don't know how long I don't know how long I can continue to do what I do.
Yeah.
And
we've had some days, where we appreciate the kind words, by the way. We've had some days, and Nick and I have talked about this, and we've been candid about it on the show, where there are some days where it's a grind. There are some days where you kind of wish, maybe you could just sit down on a Saturday instead of having to do a social media post. But again, I think, Nick, it's safe to say we've got some good things potentially coming up with some people around the community this summer that maybe are going to help us out. And we're excited about that piece. Caleb, I guess, we didn't really know what to expect from you. I got to be honest. We're going to butter your asshole a little bit right here, Caleb. You're a pretty articulate.
Wait a minute. How come my asshole wasn't butter?
ran out of margarine. So the one thing I want to say, Caleb, is I guess, we just didn't know what to expect a little bit more as far as like who you were as a person. I got to say, pretty articulate dude for somebody who claims to not know much about St. Cloud hockey. Nick, is that a fair assessment to put out there?
I say that's a fair assessment. Thanks. Even though you kind of said it for me, so
you're welcome. We're a team. We're a package deal.
One thing I like about Caleb's presence is that it's genuine. You can tell when people are, even if they think they don't know hockey or they know college hockey, or they know St. Cloud State. Again, same people who were like, oh, you need to earn your stripes, whatever. And I think those are the kinds of people that we don't need. Caleb's love, it could be, it's genuine, and it might be silly at times, and that's okay. I think that's good. Sometimes I'm not silly, and I don't get mad at myself because I'm very true to who I am, and I hope that shows through. that is who I believe Caleb is. And I think that's good. There are people when it's not genuine and you can kind of smell it, right? You can kind of smell it when it's maybe not the most genuine person. And,
we're looking at you, Mick Hatton. Just kidding.
yeah, Mick. I didn't give enough shout outs to Mick. I was trying to get him more because he needs more, by the way. And I also didn't get to say hi to my best friend, Robbie Jackson. But
yes. You can say hi to him here. He might listen. I don't know.
I'll tell him to listen. And I'll tell him I talk about him and then he'll listen. If I tell him I talk about him, he'll definitely listen.
But
he likes himself. But anyways, no, Caleb is a neat, refreshing, genuine follower. I would say relatively newer when it comes to. I've got about 3,000 followers. I mean, that's not a ton, right? I would say he's probably in the newer third. I'm not sure that that's bad or good, but it's a nice, refreshing take on St. Cloud State hockey, and that is what I really appreciate the most.
Well, how would you know where he is since you muted him and blocked him, as Caleb believes? No, Caleb, to finish up the show, I mean, what were your impressions of the show? Our first ever fan special. You boys are both a part of it. Did you have a good time, or are you going to unfollow us after the show?
No, absolutely not. This was wonderful. I think I've given you guys a lot of praise on Twitter, but now in person too, or through Zoom, whatever this technology is. You guys do a wonderful job, and Go Huskies Woo hit it on the head. You guys fill the void, and you do it spectacularly. So I mean, it's a favorite listen for me every week. Getting into this podcast thing, it's a must listen no matter what I'm doing, and it's genuine. You guys know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. You get guests that know what they're talking about, and for me, I appreciate the kind words from Go Huskies Woo too. It's just about being genuine again, just being authentic with folks. It's refreshing. Like we're all on the same team in the sense we all love the Huskies. So whether I'm silly, Go Huskies Woo is fighting off some of these haters, which he should have no haters. It's a great account to follow. I think we all can come together and kind of build this one full fulfilled team too. So kind of fun, like we all bring something different. Like we could be down 5-0 in a championship game, but like I said, damn it, we're going down together. We're going down with our boys, and I'm still gonna arm wrestle Nick after it. We're still gonna be all right. Like he's gonna bring us back a sandwich from Pittsburgh. He didn't do that. That's a fail.
I couldn't even get a coffee when I got back from Pittsburgh. For God's sake,
couldn't even get a coffee at the airport. He had a 6 a.m. flight, and he couldn't find a Caribou or like at Tim Hortons. I was like, does Ben Holden know anybody? Like. Is there a Tim Hortons anywhere for you to get a coffee?
There was a Tim Hortons in Chicago, but the line was 45 minutes long, and the in between flights was 35 minutes. The math wasn't in my favor. I don't give a heck.
I will say, and I'm not. You can do with this what you want. Caleb said this. It's 5-0, and I was still watching. Right, the community was still watching. Even though we didn't have a chance, right? When it went down 3-0, we knew, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't happening. It wasn't our night. Brett knew that. Everyone knew that. Everyone was here. It wasn't happening. Yet here we were. We were still around it. And I think that that's neat. And you do fill a void for that. If you want, I will talk it over internally. But if there is a time where you want to do another one similar to this, I'd be game for it. If you wanted to make it a segment of after a weekend recap or whatever it might be, I'd be willing if you wanted to. I'm not trying to say I'm some sort of draw or whatever. If this is uninteresting, that's fine. But a breakdown of thoughts and whatever of game or news or whatever it is, I would be interested in rejoining. Because I do think you do a good job. And if I can help in any way, I think ultimately my goal is to help the school and you guys too, because you do a great job. But anything that I can do to help St. Cloud State, whether it's to fundraise for KVSC or to fundraise the Bricks or to not have people buy Zach Okabe jerseys so that somebody else can buy it. Like that's important to me personally. So any more exposure that we can do, and we want to help. So anyway, I'm just offering my help if you want it. If not, that's okay too. I'm still going to watch and tweet on Fridays and Saturdays and mute North Dakota fans. So it really is up to you if that's something that you fellas want.
I think that might be a nice little like weekly segment as part of the weekly show. Whereas what you were thinking, Nick, like a 10-minute like recap with, that sort of thing. The other thing I think we should do is maybe just order a bunch of those Okabe jerseys and just send them to like the University of North Dakota, send them to all the fans there, and
You know what would be best, honestly, for Go Huskies was after every North Dakota game, talking about the North Dakota like mute segment where how many, let's go and recap some of the social media interactions. That might be just gold for I think a lot of Huskies fans. That might be pretty fun.
You would be surprised. It is got to be 90. I know for a fact it's 99% North Dakota fans that have been muted and or blocked. It is. I don't even mind like it's just them. It really is. Anyway, I would like to, if it would help to promote the brand for you guys and it promotes the school, it promotes your careers, especially, anything I can do to help, because the more Huskies that we have in the wild, whether it be, like Dick Bramer or Katie Emmer or whomever, right? Herzog, all these folks who do a great job, who might need a boost or might benefit from need is the wrong word, but might benefit from a boost or whatever I can do to help. I would rather have Nick do the games than Jim Rich. I would rather have Robbie do the color than Pat Micheletti, who stole our coach. I'd rather have Rachel do the color than probably Robbie. Sorry, Robbie. So, these types of things, like, I want to help with, and I know we're going over and I know I'm rambling, but my passion is in the school.
Well, we're just in it for the money. So.
Oh, so do Caleb and I get like a check in the mail? How does this work? Do you need my Venmo?
Well, if you guys were curious, our current monthly income is about -85 to -100 a month. So we're
not good. Not good.
You're
that
a numbers
doesn't seem
guy,
sustainable.
Caleb.
I went to St. Cloud State, but that doesn't seem sustainable.
Yeah.
Let's say, Caleb, you're a numbers guy. How's that looking on the budget side there?
Not looking good. I mean, I'm Minnesota math real quick, but it's not looking good. But
do you need? Honest to God, do you need Do you want? You can stop recording if you want. Do
we want money? We'll talk about it. We have the biggest thing, Nick, maybe to probably push out as we wrap up the show quickly, and then we'll talk about it after. We do have some good things coming in the summer, potentially with some food places that hopefully are going to help. But hey, we do actually. Funny enough, if you go to HuskiesWarmingHousePodcast.com, we do have a PayPal donation section there in case anyone is feeling a little frivolous in these eras and these times. But Nick, I think that's safe to say that will do it for episode number 59. Once again, thanks to Caleb and Go Huskies Woo for joining us.
They don't want to talk to us anymore, Caleb.
It's over. I think that's what this is.
We do. It's just
the intro, and they're like, "We're done."
Yeah, it's just.
I'm getting a cue that they want to be done.
It's just FCC regulations require. So Caleb, I guess since you've listened to the show every week, what is the next thing upcoming that Huskies fans have to look forward to from the Huskies Warming House podcast? Can you take a guess at what it is? It's pretty simple. Don't overthink it.
Trivia.
Actually, you know what? He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Trivia coming up this Saturday at noon, followed by episode number 60 of the Center Ice View News and Notes.
I was going to say trivia. I think that was a trick question. See, it's the first Go Huskies. They tell us they want to go, then they try and trick us on the way out.
This is why we make -$100 a month.
So technically, I was right. Trivia and then episode 60, which I won't be on because they're not going to have me back. They're trying to trick me.
I got nothing else, Nick. Anything else to add?
I think I need a Val's order from everybody. I think that's what's yes.
Yeah. I'll be waiting for my
double and a large. What else do people get? Double and a large. What else do people get?
Yeah, with the works. Gotta have.
Yeah, well, obviously get the works.
Yeah.
Get the works. Yeah.
Just want to be clear on that.
I'll be waiting for my room service here in North Dakota. That will do it for episode number 59.
I'm never going to North Dakota.
Me neither. I'm getting out as soon as I can. That will do it. We will see you back in the den next week. As always, Nick, I guess I don't know if I should say as always. Interesting to catch up with some fans for the first time and see where those opportunities came about. I think the coolest thing for maybe listeners who obviously didn't get to hear what happened after the show, Nick, do you maybe want to fill them in on kind of the piece that not only did we have them on the show, but how it's kind of developed into a little bit more than that potentially?
I think if there's one thing when you have whether it's a topic, a sports team, or it's one thing you rally around. You develop connections, right? And you can deepen those connections. And I think what happened tonight is potentially, not only do we have, we've interacted with these folks obviously for a number of months, through Huskies hockey, but now it might turn into something a little bit more than that, which, that's probably the worst generic way to phrase that, because that leaves so many different things open. But, it becomes, not just a social relationship, but potentially something where, there might be actually getting together with these guys. Who knows? So at the end of it, this is what, getting together for a common good does. And this is what good social media can do, honestly. And I think, we're seeing that. And it was really, really fun to catch up with these guys. And I think also, Noah, I think what we should point out, we haven't really talked about this, is if you are a fan of the show and would like to be on another fan segment, this was kind of a one-off for us, but I think this one went really well. And I think, if we decide to do it again, if you want to be part of it, obviously send us a DM, a tweet at us, or send us an email at huskieswarmhouspodcast.com. We would certainly love to maybe talk about doing it again, Noah, and kind of see where it goes. We'd like to have more fans on and to talk about, number one, Huskies hockey, but also, the people behind, their social media platforms and who they are as people. So I think it's a really good opportunity to get to know you guys and also to get to know us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the two things I would point out is one, with Caleb and Go Huskies Woo, something I think at its baseline turning into a really great set of friendships right there. I think that's the biggest thing is, we met so many similar to with Derek Felska, when he came on, so many great people that we meet that are a part of this, not only talking Huskies hockey, but just great people that, I look at Caleb because he's the only one that we can see on the screen. And I see him sitting in his apartment or wherever he is. And I can imagine going to his house on a Friday night and having a brew with him. Right. And I think there's something about that to be said. The other thing, like you mentioned too, with social media, with all three of us, or four of us technically, with the Huskies Warming House podcast, Caleb, and of course, Go Huskies Woo. More than happy, as long as you're cordial and not a total nut job, interacting with us, right? Interact with us, have fun with us, ask us questions. We're more than happy to kind of grow our following and grow the game of hockey, and of course St. Cloud State hockey as we cover that as well. So Nick, well said by you. And again, I think if you listen to the end of the show, you know what's coming up for us in the next week or so. Pretty average, pretty mundane week. Do we have anything else to add before we head on out of here?
Definitely got some plans for the next couple of segments coming up. So we definitely want to get some guests, not only that are involved with the team directly, but also with some folks outside of the game as well. Going to try to expand a little bit, maybe into some other conferences potentially, to try to bring in some alumni as well. So we have a lot of irons in the fire, as someone would say, and excited about trying to keep some fresh content, especially throughout the off season, and again trying to keep up with some of the new developments coming to West Way for college hockey, which no question now with, social media, there really is no off season anymore when it comes to sports, even though the boys aren't playing, the news never stops.
Yeah, when we talk about some non-conference stuff, we might have some St. Thomas connections that we might have on in the near future. We'll just leave it at that. So, and with that being said, Nick, I had another point here. Let's see if I can remember it when you were talking about it. In the summer is maybe we're probably going to try to be a little more alumni heavy and get some people on the show that, maybe aren't playing anymore, but we love to hear their stories as well. So a little more in season, it gets a little bit more of a grind and a little more kind of intent and focus on what the men's and women's teams have going on, but probably going to try to open it up a little bit more to some alumni, especially in the summer. But we got to get there first, Nick, a couple more weeks before finals, and we'll see you next week, of course, as always, in the den.
score! Ripped in! A bomb from Pervix!
So Dana Rasmussen fires and she scores. Dana Rasmussen for the Huskies.
Dwayne Kaprizov in for a chance to win it. He scores! Kirill the Thrill is for real. Welcome to the NHL. A game winner.
St. Cloud Cathedral is now 42.6 seconds away from wrapping up the school's first ever title.